Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glen Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glen Sutherland. This week, my guest is Ruslan Benko. Ruslan, you want to start off by just giving everybody an introduction to yourself?
Of course. Thanks for having me, Glenn. So my name is Ruslan. I started investing in Canada a number of years ago, I guess back in 2018, first in Ontario, where I picked up a few duplexes. From there on, I moved to Alberta, added a duplex there. And, over time started looking how to scale a little bit better. And I came over your podcast. I joined your course as well. And since then, I've transitioned to the States. I've done a successful flip in Detroit, and now also have moved to a garage conversion, so a little bit more complex in Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. Okay. So anyway, I'm not sure where you want to go with this conversation, but I'd love to hear the story. You want to go into like what's happened, and maybe I'll just cut you off here and there, ask you some questions.
Yeah, of course. So, originally, like before COVID, I think the numbers were really great in Ontario, at least for myself. And, we started doing that. And then once COVID hit, the numbers have looked a little bit different. Obviously, there has been quite appreciation in terms of the value of the houses, but the rents haven't kept pace with that. So then,
So maybe I'll cut you off right off the bat. So, what kind of number jumps are we as, like, even rough numbers? Like, you were buying duplexes, I believe, right, in Ontario?
Yeah.
So, like, what kind of, like, where are you buying at? What were you finding when the end? And it doesn't have to be exact numbers.
Yeah, or so rough numbers. The one we picked up, for example, was, and it was like, say, in the Durham region, like in the high 600s, and now the same properties, probably looking closer to $1 million or so. So I'd say, what is it, like 40% jump or so? Yeah. Roughly, when with the rents, and that depends if one can increase it or not, right? Or only increasing a little bit higher, and then again, it's not a certain that you can increase the rents. Obviously, there's rules around that, right. Quite strict. So yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm like, for some people that are like in different markets, are kind of might be curious about what kind of price.
Of course, yeah. So the prices in some probably for some people have doubled. In my case, like it nearly doubled, let's say, but the rents haven't doubled. And then even if you can increase it, and if you have a rent that's under market value, it's not always the case that you can bring those to market value. So yeah.
Okay. Sorry, continue with the story. So you started off with getting those, and then COVID happened.
Sure. And, I picked up a few, and then from there on moved to Calgary, right? The rules are a little bit different in terms of the landlord-tenant board, and the price values are lower, right? So then I ran some numbers, saw some properties, built a team, and picked up a duplex there just outside of Calgary. And that looked as well quite good. But I had a problem in terms of scalability, right? So in terms of the way financing works, right? They usually cut you off once you meet some of the thresholds, right? The debt ratios and so forth. So then the natural move was to look at US. I've heard there were some products that they didn't DSCR loans, so that
service coverage ratio.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So where the value of the loan was based on the debt amount and the rent, not necessarily of how much other loans and debt you have already picked up. So it's based on the asset lending.
Yeah, so it makes it different hurdles. So it's not the lending hurdle. It might be, at least for myself, I've always found it's finding the killer deals. There's that's the hard part, is to find enough deals. Because the financing isn't typically going to be the issue.
Yeah, for sure. And population-wise and so forth, US is much bigger. There's a number of different city-states that one can invest in, and Canada, right? Those choices are more limited.
Yeah, and so you said the first one you bought was Detroit. Is that where the first one was?
For sure, yeah. So the first one I bought in Detroit, it was, if you want to call it, a proof of concept, because the prices in Detroit are significantly lower compared to a number of other areas in the States and including in Canada. So just to give an example, the place that I bought was 75, I believe was 75,000 US, right? So unheard of prices in Canada. So again, I thought, listen, we're going to give it a try. I took your course and I built the team. And then I was like, well, worst case, there's like, I would rent it out long term. And we did that. It was not a grand slam, but it was a good, double hit, I would call it. We were able to profit. We bought it for 75, put probably about 25,000 rent or so, and then sold it for 133 4 or 5 months later. So it was, was a good first deal just to get my legs, to first step in the US market.
Yeah. I always like to ask this question, and if you don't like it, I'll just delete it from the podcast.
No, go for it.
But did you find any I know I was trying to help you with this, but did you find struggles or any obstacles or things that were unexpected or problems when you were doing that first flip?
Well, of course, there were quite a few, and I was expecting them just because I did invest a little bit in Canada before. But one thing right off the bat, for example, as soon as we put the place on the market, and maybe that's a Detroit problem, but the place got broken into, so they tried to steal the fridge. Luckily, the fridge was
the fridge aren't worth anything.
I know, and it was an old one too, but they couldn't fit through the door, right? So luckily, we were able to do that quite quickly. And then it's just, managing the contractors. I went there in person, I saw it, but then I did rely on the contractors who did a good job, right? But then there were some additions because as I was seeing the end result, first I thought actually it might be a long-term rental, but then when I look at the numbers, I thought, well, maybe it's a flip. So then we had to change a little bit the scope, right? So that held us back. Nothing crazy. I'd say maybe 2-3 weeks. But then because we wanted some nicer finishes for the flip, then we had to go back and revisit some of those numbers and some of that scope of work. So I think, be a little bit, for me, it was like a lesson learned to be a little bit more clear. What's the end strategy? And obviously, I need to have multiple options, but, is it a flip, a long-term hold, a Airbnb, whatever that might be, it helps if, it's a solid strategy from the start.
And you just brought up something that I think a lot of Canadians overlook, because in Canada, a rental property is very similar to a flip property. Some of them are very nice. And, just talking about the difference between a flip ready renovation versus a rent ready renovation. What were some of the things you changed? Was it countertops, or what were the things that you needed to do in order to bring it up to a flip grade? Are you looking to invest in the US? Are you looking for a coach that has been doing this for much more than 1 year? In fact, doing this for almost 10 years? Do you want to do one-on-one calls? Do you want to actually have someone looking at your deals and actually thinking and worrying about your projects? If that's of interest to you, I'd love to get on a phone call with you. Go to glensutherland.com or at canadianinvestingintheusa.com and schedule a call. We'll just do a quick 15 minutes, see if it works for you.
For sure. So some of the nicer handles, things like that, those are more minor. But then I believe we had the carpet upstairs. So for a rental, we could have leave the carpet. That wouldn't be an issue. But obviously, if we want to do the flip, then we had to make sure that we put some nice flooring in there. And then the same thing, we had a fireplace. We could just paint it and leave it as is if it was a rental. But because we were now working towards a flip, we put some nice tiles. So some touches like that. Luckily, the windows, they were completed by the previous owner. Some of the big stuff they were, but some minor touches, which they do add up in the end, right? Some of those things, I'd say the flooring upstairs and the fireplace were the two bigger ones.
Okay. And so did the sale go fine? Do you, just from my own experience, sometimes you're selling it to an FHA buyer or a VA buyer or a conventional buyer. And sometimes there's, requests from the financer to do before sale. Did you have any of those?
Okay, so it was a cash buyer, luckily,
Okay.
either cash or DSCR, so we didn't have to go through the FHA. So that was pretty straightforward. But they did do an inspection. There were some minor things they wanted to fix up, which was fine by me. I think in the end, it was roughly $2,000-3,000 or so. There were some more minor things, nothing major. And then I got my contractor to complete. So it went relatively smoothly. I was able to do it all online. I did go to see the property in person. As I said, I want to see the quality of the work that the contractor was doing and to meet everybody in person. But the sale, the notary, everything, it was done online. So pretty straightforward.
So you just mentioned going to visit the property. When did you do that? Was it before or during the reno, or what stage?
It was after. Yeah. So
After,
as I built the team, there was, I had a contractor, that started to visit the properties. So I was relying on them, and obviously he'd send me the pictures and show me how the work is going. So to buy it, I didn't go there in person. The contractor went, and then he took the pictures and everything, told me roughly the scope of work and the pricing, and I made a decision without seeing the property in person. I did go there after he completed the work because I wanted to see the quality of the work and, to prepare it for the sale. So I did go just before we sold the property.
Yeah, no, I love that too. Like sometimes it's fun to go down and just see the properties, and network, and especially if you're looking to scale this, just to know what the contractors, strengths and the weaknesses are. Like, hey, that maybe their trim isn't their best, or maybe this isn't their best, but maybe some things they're amazing at. So sometimes
for sure,
yeah.
There's some minor things you catch here and there. For example, for me, I know when they were the windows stayed as is, for example, but there were some things when they were painting the windows that they should actually, leave it as is and not touch it so that the water can drain properly. So there's some small stuff like that, for example, because I did want to go through all the scope of work. So, I saw that and said, hey, is that something we can fix? I want to make sure water doesn't build up there. So those minor things, and they were able to help out as well. But yeah, and also it's a different thing, right? Seeing someone work and send you the pictures online or meeting them in person. I think that, that's sometimes can, it's better to build that relationship in person to see them actually face to face.
So do you plan on working with them again?
Yeah, I believe so. We did that. From there on, I actually made a step. So Detroit is, it's a great market. Probably more people will call it a cash flow than appreciation, although it's been growing quite a lot over the past few years. But, I wanted to switch and go somewhere where the fundamentals are a little bit stronger, in my point of view. So from there on, I moved to Dallas, Texas. Also a great market, a lot of business. They choose the Sun Belt for obvious reasons. So I built a team. I had a contractor there. I had wholesalers sending me deals, and I decided to go, on a property that needed a garage conversion. So a little bit more complex. I'm working on it as we speak. Went there in person as well. I actually went before we started the reno, because we knew we needed to add a third bedroom. To increase the value of the property, because it was a 2-bed with a garage. So, we're working on the garage conversion as we speak. We're waiting for the permit approval from the city.
Awesome. So, I know that's a common question I get when people are trying to make a conversion from like a 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom, and sometimes it's really difficult to figure out if you can fit that third bedroom in. How did you figure that out before you closed on this property?
That's a good question, and I didn't have the solution when I closed. I've spoken with a few different people, a designer, the contractor, the real estate agent, so they all had a little bit of a different opinion at first. And that actually, maybe it's a lesson learned for me, because at first we thought that we can fit a third bedroom into the, combine the 2 bedrooms, split it somehow to make it a third bedroom. But that's one of the big reasons why I went there in person. But, I saw that it would be really, really messy. And then those bedrooms, I mean, they would be more like a closet versus a bedroom.
Yeah.
So that's what I got a few second opinions, let's call it this way, and they said, listen, the garage conversions are happening quite a lot. There's a few already on the street. It would make more sense to do that. And so I've got a quote from the contractor, and then they said, I saw the numbers, they made sense, and I knew I wanted the third bedroom because this just opens, so many more opportunities to who you can rent or sell this place. There's a more limited amount of renters or buyers that want a 2-bedroom apartment.
Okay, and I'm picturing a bungalow. Am I in the right?
Yeah, it's a bungalow,
okay,
for sure. Brick bungalow, big yard, 2-car garage, smaller 2-car garage, but a 2-car garage for sure. Yeah.
So to do it's not an ADU, but to do the garage conversion, do you use the whole garage or just half of the garage?
We decided to use the whole garage. The garage is a little bit smaller, so it's a 2-car garage, but it's a smaller 2-car garage, full brick. So we decided to convert the whole thing, and we're going to get the permits now. They have been submitted, and then add a window, so everything to make sure it's up to code and it's an actual livable space.
No, I love it, and was it? I'm guessing there's permit process to go through.
There's a permit process. So that's maybe a lesson learned because, have I known from the beginning that we'd be converting the garage, then we'd submit them right away. But, this probably delayed us 2 or 3 weeks. We have submitted it now, I'd say probably 2 weeks ago. So we're waiting for the city. We have done the renovations on the remaining of the house, changed the windows, the bathroom, the whole spiel. And so now it's just the permit on the garage conversion.
I love it. And I've done this garage conversion as well myself. And it helps the value of the property. It's worth more as like a 3-1 than a 2-1.
For sure.
I put tenants in mine, and they, I don't know if it was just the location or whatever, but they stayed for a long period of time. I ended up selling the property as a rental property. I think those tenants are still there to this day. Nice. I think it's a great idea to get some extra bedrooms. And I agree with everything you said, because like putting it in, sometimes making some bedrooms too small, it's just, if they have a couple kids, it might work and it might be okay with it, but for selling, a lot of buyers are not going to be super stoked about it.
Agreed. So, I guess you look at a trade-off. So it's a smaller place, it's a bungalow, nice bungalow, but I think it's just under 1,300 square feet. So you could fit it in there, but it's going to be really small. If someone has, 2 kids, it's hard. Or if you convert the garage, and I don't quote me on the exact square footage, but let's say it's 250 square feet. All of a sudden you have a house that's 1,500 square feet. Sure, you lose the garage, but, it is a trade-off. I think this is a better trade-off, and that's what the real estate agent said as well, that would help, bring the value up of the place. And I have spoken with people, and they all have said the similar thing. As long as it, financially it makes sense, and you want someone to like the place rather than call it a third bedroom, but then they can't fit a double or a twin bed.
Yeah, and getting permits is the right way to do it, because otherwise you might not be able to count that square footage on your MLS listing.
Yeah, for sure. And because I'm not local, dealing with issues if they do come up, if it doesn't have the appropriate permit, I'm sure it's going to be a pain. So for sure, that was one of the things we talked with the contractor, that, the permits, they're non-negotiable, just because if there is an inspection, either when we sell the property or God forbid something happens, we want to make sure that we're covered.
Yeah. And in strategy wise, you might have said this before. Is this going to be a rental, or are you selling this one as well?
So we're gonna try to do it a flip. So we're working towards making it a flip. But we have also positioned it that, say would give it 90 days. If it doesn't sell, it's a nice area of the city. Like there's a lot of families there. So then we'd convert it into a rental and take it step by step.
Yep. That's the magic formula. If you can make it work both ways, you got out multiple exits. Stress is going to be down,
Yeah, for sure. And that's the big one, because, because we're not local, we try as much as we can to, minimize the stress for us. So, but at the same time, taking some action, and this seemed like a good step in a good city.
Yeah, and I remember when you were talking about the Detroit project, you went and saw it when it was done. Are you planning to see this one when it's done?
I'm not sure. I was planning to. I think we'll have to see how it goes. I do have boots on the ground as well, the contractor, the real estate agent. There's a few other folks that can do that for me. So I haven't made the final decision yet, but very possibly yes.
Okay, awesome. This is great. I love these successful stories. I love people like taking action, and so just tell me, like, if someone was interested in doing this, what would you recommend they do?
Sure. I think, the best advice, at least for me, was to find someone that's doing it and try to somehow, learn from them, join them. That was for me. I was looking for someone who has done it already, and then I tried to join them. So my best advice is yes, take some action. Obviously, depending on the risk appetite, but find someone that's doing it and learn from them.
Yeah, and what's the future? Are you planning to just continue to do like one project at a time? Are you planning on bringing on partners, or and are you planning on doing more Dallas or more Detroit, or what does the future look for like for us?
So, we'll see. So it's both my wife and I also working on it together. So I think once we finalize this deal, then we'll have to see. There's a few ideas in the pipeline. Definitely, we have now the teams built in Detroit and in Dallas, and then we could go that route, or we could also see if we can scale a little bit more into a smaller multifamilies, depending how the numbers pan out. But we're open, we're flexible. It's just a matter of making the numbers work for us.
Love it. Russ, if someone's like, hey, I'd love to get on a call with you, or I'd like to, be part of a project or whatever, if they wanted to get a hold of you, are you interested in having people contact you?
They can reach out, not an issue, of course.
Sure. How would they reach out?
Okay, so the best thing to do is probably just to shoot me an email. It's first three letters of my first name, Russ, and then last name, Benko. So russbenko@gmail.com.
Perfect. Awesome. This was a good episode. I think people who are listening to this are going to be like, it shows that you can do this. It shows that you can scale this. It shows that you can set up multiple teams remotely without meeting them. You can buy properties without going there. I think it was like an amazing example of what is possible for Canadians to do in the United States.
And thanks to you, Glenn. Thanks so much for you. I didn't say that, throughout the episode, but we did connect throughout as I was doing, especially my first one in Detroit. And thanks for your support.
Oh, you're welcome. Russ, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in this.
My pleasure.
That was a nice video. Bye.